So we are live. Hello to everybody. Welcome to another Quality Talks interviews. I'm very happy today because I have one of the most inspiring people in a QA out there in the world that I can just think of. And yeah, I'm very honored to introduce and say this big news to you. I have Lisa Crispin today with me. Hello, Lisa.
Well, it's just an honor to be here. I love, I think that the online meetups have been a silver lining of the pandemic, and I've really had a great time in the past year, both attending and speaking at different meetups, and I've learned a lot. So it's really a great resource for us, and I'm grateful to organizers like you.
That's awesome. And yeah, I'm a small fish comparing to you, but who knows? Lisa, I doubt that there's anybody in a QA field that doesn't know who you are, but nonetheless, I would like you to introduce briefly yourself to people that will watch us.
Well, you're very kind, Lena. I've been in the software industry a really long time, and I've been a tester, for close to 20 years now. Maybe longer, maybe 30 years. I don't know. I lose track. But in the past 20 years, longer than 20 years, because in the past 20 years, I've been on Agile teams and have discovered the benefits of a whole team approach to quality and testing, and seeing how much more effective it is when we're all work together, when we're allowed to be autonomous and identify and solve our own problems. And I early on, when I first joined an extreme programming team, and my team was having trouble figuring out how do we do testing and how does the tester fit in? And I was lucky enough to meet other people in the community who were in the same struggle, like Janet Gregory, and we wanted to share our experiences. And so that's how I got started writing and speaking, and just trying to pass on what we've learned and what other teams we know had learned, because we know everybody will run into similar problems. And we'll solve those problems, and there'll be new problems to solve. So we want to share what we've done as much as possible, so we're ready to take on the new problems. And I live in Vermont on a little farm with my husband and 4 donkeys, 4 cats, and 2 dogs.
Okay, I actually knew about 3 donkeys, and I was about to say that, okay, you have 3 donkeys and 3 published books. So now that you have 4, when should we expect for the 4th book?
Well, I actually have 4 published books. So I co-authored my first book, Testing Extreme Programming, with Tip House, and that was published in 2003. So there are 4 books, but every time I write one, I say never again. Janet, my partner in crime, Janet, she's got a ton of new ideas, and it could easily fill another book. But they're all her ideas. But if she wants to write a book, I'd probably help her. But
I think that you definitely do. I have to be honest. I knew about 3 of them, and 2 of them I have on ebook version, and the Agile Testing Condensed, the last one, I have in a physical copy. But we would definitely love to see another one.
Well, and it's nice that lots and lots of books are being written today, where for a long time people just weren't writing about how do we do testing in agile organizations. And I love that people are sharing their stories. And I just Melissa Fisher and Felipe Nora-Kuhn just edited a book of testing stories, which is available on WeedPub, just released last week. And I was happy to contribute a story to that. But it's really fun to go through and read everybody's stories and learn from everybody's experiences. And they're all different. Some of them are quite funny. Some of them are, quite, oh yeah, I feel that pain. So.
Yeah, I think that regardless the geography, location, team, or company size, at the end of the day, we feel the same pain all over again, right?
Yeah, in the research for our books, it was interesting talking to teams all over the world, and we were kind of surprised that a lot of people have had very similar problems, and a lot of them have solved them in similar ways. So I think every team has a unique context, but there are just some general things that seem to apply across many teams.
Yeah, That's true. But I didn't knew about that one. I need to check for it. But you also give trainings, right?
Well, Janet and I have a company called the Agile Testing Fellowship, and we have we've handpicked trainers around the world, so it's very exciting. That give our course. We have a live course that in person it's usually given as a 3-day course, but of course a year ago we quickly had to convert it into an online course, and Janet did a great job of adapting, because it's a very hands-on course. So Janet did, oh, my husband brought me tea. Janet did a great job of adapting the hands-on exercises for groups into remote work. So using an online collaborative tool like Google Docs, Slides, or Miro or Mural, or any of those nice online tools that we have now, to give the same experience. So our trainers are teaching. Some are able to teach in person in the countries that have done better with COVID, and many of them, most of them, are doing it online right now. So it's a course for the. Oh, sorry.
That's great that it was possible to adapt it, and so people.
And it's a course. It's a course for the whole team. So a lot of people think, oh, it's a testing course, but it's called Agile Testing for the whole team. But it's actually designed for a whole software team to come and take the course together, and it works really, really well that way. People in different specialties all learning how to handle testing in an agile context.
Yeah, great, Lisa. And now going more like to specifics. I will not say when, but I once in the past, I was honored to have an interview with you. So I'm really curious, what do you think are the top qualities for a QA professional from your point of view?
Whenever I'm looking to hire or, helping to hire somebody, the thing I look for is attitude and mindset. People can learn skills. It's harder to teach people the mindset, the growth mindset of, and I know that you have this because you're so good at learning and so eager to learn, but wanting to learn, willing to step in and do whatever the team needs, which takes a lot of courage. And on an agile team, it's not so bad because we can collaborate and work together. It's not like you have to do that on your own, but just that willingness to just jump in and learn. Curiosity, it's all part of that.
I do agree.
Yeah. And, at the same time, it's good to have technical awareness. We don't have to be coders, and we don't have to be software architects or SREs or anything, but we need to understand those things well enough to communicate with the rest of the team. So, earlier in my career, I found it was really helpful if I learned how to use an IDE that the programmers were using, like Eclipse or IntelliJ or whatever it is, because then I could sit down and pair with them and I could navigate around and being able to understand the code and work with somebody who's working in the code. Of course, being willing to ask questions because we don't understand everything, and really understanding. People say, "Oh, you have to be a great test automator to be effective today." Ironically, a lot of my automation skills and coding skills have got rusty over the past few years because I've worked on teams where the developers, the programmers, did all the automation. Yeah. So maybe I paired with them to do it, but I wasn't as hands-on. But what's really important is understanding, what I haven't forgotten is the design patterns and principles that make for good, well-designed code, whether it's test code or production code. And so in my new team where I'm working in an ensemble, I could notice things like, we're copy pasting a big chunk of code from one file to another. Do we really want to maintain that code in two places?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just extract that out to a helper. So I can suggest things or ask questions about things, even though I'm no expert at coding. And I'm trying to get my skills back, but being able to have those conversations.
I'm pretty sure still have them.
And we're so lucky today to have such good resources. For example, for patterns, I like to use the testautomationpatterns.org wiki, which Dorothy Graham I can't remember who her partner for doing that is, but they have a book as well. I've got it on the shelf somewhere, but I can look these up later and post them.
Okay, I'm writing this down because this is really precious
But
information.
you can go to this wiki and learn about all kinds of patterns, and whether it's for automating tests or doing manual testing or any kind of testing. And it's really helpful if you're kind of stuck, like maybe your team is having a challenge automating something or not sure how to test something. You can go browse around on that site and get some ideas. And their patterns, they're proven, they're used by other people. So
awesome. I'll leave also the link in the description of this video in case people would be curious to check. That's awesome. Great tips. And you partially kind of answered already to my next question, because I do know that you are a whole team approach advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that people in the QA world that doesn't know exactly automation or how to code, they still have space and a possibility to continue with their jobs?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm a prime example of that because, I used to be quite comfortable with automating tests with, WebDriver or Robot Framework or, Cucumber, any of those tools. And I, didn't do that for a while. I mean, I was using other kinds of tools. I was using low-code tools and things like that. But, if you're not using something every day, it's hard to be good at it. But like I say, just having that technical awareness, and again, so many resources. Test Automation U is a wonderful place, and they have different tracks for you to go learn about automation.
That one I know, and it's definitely amazing.
And different levels. There are basic courses there that just talk about the principles. The whole team, Lisi Hawk, for example, has a course on the whole team approach to test automation. And so that'll help you learn how to get started with your team, whether you're writing the code yourself and you've got a team of coders already. So I don't think it's necessary. There seems to be more, I have to confess, there is a lot more emphasis, and I think a lot of employers maybe think that the coding skills are important. So that maybe means that maybe you should get comfortable with basic level of some programming. Once you learn one programming language, you can understand the others. Ministry of Testing is another site that has a lot of resources. Some of those are not free, but they're still a good bargain. And like Test Automation U, I think they're about to implement this if they haven't already. They have paths. It's like, okay, my team's using Ruby, and I want to learn what's the best way to automate tests. If there's a whole path oriented towards Ruby and specifically, or Java, or whatever it is. So, or mobile testing or accessibility testing. So we have all these great resources, and those are just a couple of them.
That's great. Thank you. And I do remember when I started as a QA, so I don't have a IT background. I did not study computer science. So I just came out of nowhere and started, of course, as a manual tester. But after my first 3 months, I was bored and I wanted to, just try to explore more things. And I started to learn Python. And I do remember back then on LinkedIn, there were like articles all over the place saying that if you do not learn automation just now, you won't be able to secure a job in the near future, in the next couple of years. But I do see nowadays that lots and lots of QA professionals, they become actually more an advocate for quality within the company, where it is possible that company just functions, with the quality embedded in the teams, regardless of the role. So I do like this approach as well. And although I code a little bit, in my team, we are all responsible for testing. And it was nice just to see this shift when, people were just really worried and that they had to learn coding really fast. And nowadays we see this more, approach of
Mhm.
whole team, and yeah, that's awesome. And about the QA strategy. So we know about the part of automation, but where to begin then thinking about strategy, or how a company, for example, that had no QA since the beginning of times, how they can start something, or where should they
Yeah,
should start?
I think it is important to talk about strategy at a higher level, and the team that I just joined, they're doing a great job with quality and testing, but they're just now we've started having conversations of, we're working on a new product. How do we know we have enough test coverage? What does test coverage even mean? Is that just talking about automated regression tests, or is that talking about feature coverage? Are we covering all the scenarios in which a customer might use a feature? Are we covering all the quality attributes like performance, security, et cetera? And so people are starting to think about, we might be missing something because we haven't really mapped it out. And what I like to use is I like to use visual models to help us start talking about strategy and thinking.
Something similar to things that you have in books as well, like mind
Well,
maps.
mind maps are great visual, exactly. And I like using things like the Agile Testing quadrants. Is one of Janet's and my standbys, and we've used with teams, and lots of other teams have used it to try to help with your lateral thinking. Think outside the box, right? Because we all have our biases that lead us down the same path. So what's important to the business in terms of quality? What's important to us as technologists in terms of quality? What will help us write the code? What will help us evaluate whether what we've written is correct? And things that we may not think about at the start of a project, like, maybe security or performance are even more important than functionality, or reliability, or we want to do continuous delivery. What all do we need for that in terms of testing? How do we build a continuous delivery pipeline with automated test suites and stuff? And a model like the quadrants just helps you talk about it, because it reminds you of all the different types of testing activities there are and which ones might you need. And there are lots of I like a lot of the risk-based models. Rob Meany has some really good models to help teams talk about what's the most risky thing and where do they need to focus their testing, right? Because we can't test everything. He has a really great book with Ash Winter on, I think it's called Team Guide to Testability. And he's got a lot of recorded talks online, and unfortunately he doesn't blog much or anything like that. And I was like, I'm always frustrated. It's like, no, that's a great model. You need to write about that. But yeah, I'm really fond of his models as well. Lots of Noah Sussman has some great models. Katrina Klucke. There are lots of models for thinking about test automation strategy. The test automation pyramid is a classic. There are lots of adaptations about that. And lots of, bug pass filter models where it's like catch the little bugs here and the big bugs here. So there are lots of different ways, and those help us think. It just helps our brains work better, and it helps us communicate better to have that visual, especially now while we're all remote still. Talking about these while looking at the model online and using our virtual sticky notes and virtual whiteboards, it's all really helpful.
Well, it's not the same thing, but at least we have something. But regarding the mind maps that you have also in the books, and I have to be honest that I tried to use them somewhere in the past, and it didn't work for me. But after I read one of your books recently, like last year, or reread, actually, I somehow I came back to this concept, and for me it was quite helpful to even define the strategy for a QA at my company. So it was really nice to have this skill, or at least seeing in your books, and I got really inspired by that. So visual
really
things
nice to hear.
help. So visual things are really, really nice, and they can be helpful to the whole team to understand exactly how everything just comes together. But yeah, sticky notes and boards and stuff. But now regarding the different test types, because test levels, I think that they kind of, common, uh, even like in different countries. But test types, I don't think that they are already. Um, by that I mean, imagine, for example, most of the companies, they know by now already that they need to secure the unit test level, the
Mm-hmm.
integration, and then APIs, and checking like the system testing, end-to-end testing. But when it comes to the test types, I do feel that we have a lot of differences in different, like in the globe. And here in Portugal, I usually see more functional testing a lot, but not that much non-functional. But even when
Mm-hmm.
that happens, I do see like performance test, load test, but not that much. For example, accessibility
Mm-hmm.
test or stress test. So I was wondering, like, how about companies where you worked at?
Yeah, in the early days of Agile, we, the teams I was on were just as guilty of focusing only on functional testing. And I can remember in 2006, I went to a couple of conferences where there were talks about security testing and performance testing. And I
Yeah.
was talking to somebody, one of the speakers, and I said, how come I never see you at Agile conferences? It was just a testing conference. And he said, well, because the Agile teams don't do this type of testing. I'm like, you're absolutely right. So
Yeah.
that kind of got me started. But yeah, I think a lot of it is, as especially for web-based applications, which is where most of my experience is, our users are more sophisticated, more demanding. It used to be so exciting to access anything on the internet that we're
Exactly.
not
But
very
now
picky. But
that's
now
true.
they want a great user experience. They want good performance. They want to know their data is secure. And of course, there are lots of regulations around that. And then we've also realized that there's a huge chunk of the population that needs extra help and extra accommodation, and that extra accommodation
Yeah.
is good for everybody. And then, because of continuous delivery and the quick pace, we're releasing, some people are releasing every day or multiple times a day. That's got new challenges too. So we have to think about things like testing and production and chaos engineering, all kinds of different ways to test.
Exactly.
So yeah, and so for my team right now, unfortunately, and I hope to get people to change this, there's no desire to make the site accessible,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a problem. So what can I do I'm just a tester on a team? But like yesterday I was mentioning, we were having trouble. One of our cucumber tests was failing because it was clicking on something. We couldn't tell if it was really clicking on it. And we looked at the code, and it was just the element locator was just the class of the object. And that's not very specific, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we had ARIA labels, we could use those as element locators in our automated tests, as well as providing people the ability to use a screen reader. So
Exactly.
so I'm just trying
But
to plant some
actually,
seeds.
that's a nice tip for me to convince devs, for example, to add labels, because not here, because it's a different concept with QA. But back in the past, I had some difficulties to convince devs to add the labels to some of the things. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, maybe you don't need that. Maybe you can have a workaround. It's like, yeah, maybe I can, but actually, that's a nice tip.
Right. And we really need, as testers these days, we really need to be around both sides of that continuous testing loop, and learn about how is our team doing monitoring, what are we logging, what data are we logging, do we have any observability? If we have an unexpected problem in production, will we have the data there to help us figure it out? Do we have the capability to reverse changes in production really quickly if there's a problem? There are all kinds of things to think about. It all relates to quality. It all relates to helping our customers and keeping them from suffering pain. So
Yeah.
we have just such a wider scope, I think, and sometimes it's overwhelming, and sometimes it's just a really fun challenge.
But actually, now I have another question because we have a lot of things, and you mentioned, and that's actually true. That I do see a lot of even blog posts on Medium and etc.
Mm-hmm.
about that, like the chaos engineering, the mutation testing, also the security testing, performance, accessibility. So, when to stop? Like, because at some point we see that different types of testing and but sometimes we probably don't need all of them, right? Or the more the better.
Well, that's where I go back to using those models. Like, how do we focus our testing? What's the most important? What's
Yeah,
the highest risk? Or what's the most value? So
exactly.
what's the most valuable to our customers? Let's make sure that's working. There are a lot of wise people, like, for example, Jeff Patton is when I've heard his talks and read his book, he's a proponent for doing less. Like, let's make less software, but let's make it exactly what our customers need the most.
Yeah,
What helps
but
them the most.
that's the thing, how to balance that, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we are so used to think about more and more and more, and okay, now we have the functional testing, now we will have performance, then we will have security, then we will have accessibility, then we will have mutation, chaos, things,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes it can be just too much, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so there, maybe we can think of them as tools in our toolbox, and which ones do we need to use? And it's very hard for teams to delete code, even if the code's not used anymore. And delete tests. Joao, for instance, did a great talk last year at Test Bash Home about, should we delete some of these automated tests that aren't really helping us anymore, and why that's hard for us to do as humans because of our
I do
unconscious
remember the
bias.
talk from Joao
Yeah,
about that, and yeah,
yeah.
we don't want to delete our tests. No, please, no.
No, we have so
Don't
much
do that
invested in
ever to
them.
anybody.
But
Yeah,
it is really easy to get caught up in kind of quantity and having a wide scope. And sometimes maybe we need to pare that down. And it's really true, the teams I've been on that have been the most successful were the teams that learned the business domain so well that when the business stakeholders came to us and said, "Oh, we want this new feature and it's very fancy and
yeah,
we think you should do this and the other thing," and we look at it and we say, "Well, what's the purpose? What's your goal? What are you trying to do for the customers? What's this going to do for the business?" And when we understand that better and we understand the domain, we can say, "Well, you know what? We can give you 80% of that for half the cost, but the last 20% is going to cost you, twice as much. Do you really need that last 20%?" And, they always want to say they do, but when you confront them with the hard facts, they usually say, "No, that's fine. We can live without that."
they
And
always forget
that's
about
how
the
teams go.
correctly.
That's how teams go fast. So people saw our team as moving really fast when what we were doing was less work. We just knew
Yeah,
how to
exactly.
do less work.
But sometimes, yeah, even though one small thing can be, in terms of the team productivity, can
Mm-hmm.
have a really great impact, right? And they say that the 80% of work will take, 20% of time, and then so yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
funny how
crucial.
that works. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a lot of people here greeting us. Hello to
Oh,
everybody.
isn't that nice? Oh,
Yeah, we have
cool.
Joel
Oh,
here.
wow. Awesome.
Hello. We are talking about you just
Oh, thanks for
now.
joining us on a Saturday. That's so nice.
uh,
So,
yeah, so
something you said earlier, I kind of got away from it, but you were talking about kind of having a common language. Like at some levels, everybody knows what a unit test is, right?
yeah,
And we were just talking about this yesterday in our testing. We had a kind of a testing retrospective for our team, and
mhm.
and we were like, we need like a vocabulary or dictionary almost, because integration testing, that's one of my favorites. I've heard people mean 100 different things when they say integration testing. So that's a new challenge for, I think, for the team I'm on and the organization I'm on, because we're working on a service-oriented architecture. All these teams have to work together. It's really hard. We need to communicate. And so how can we come up with our standard vocabulary and understand each other when we're talking about testing?
I do feel I felt such pain just a couple of months ago because I was talking about integration, and some people were, thinking about one thing and another about another thing, and at some point I noticed, but it was not easy to spot, that there was some difference in understanding, and the same happened actually about the end-to-end testing as well. Because it also has the integration from the external stakeholders. That's everything that comes together. So it was kind of tricky. So when I understood that, it was the very first thing that I wrote on Confluence was what does mean what and who does what. Because, okay, guys, this is our basis. We start from here because, that's true. And I think that integration tests and from my experience also, end-to-end testing, usually there are some misunderstanding among the team. Yeah, that's true.
I totally agree. And words, words can be really important. And, you mentioned that you started as a manual tester, which of course most of us did. But when people say manual testing or manual tester, I don't know, at least in the English language, it has a connotation of, well, anybody could do it. It's not very important. And so Janet and I have been using the term human-centric testing because we're
I like that.
I like that too. And I think it was Erica Chestnut who said this. She calls it humanual. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I think that's a nice way to think about it too. But emphasizing the human aspect of we need our brains, we need our skills, we need our, our spidey sense.
Exactly. Exactly, that's true. Yeah, I do remember I was hiring a team, and I had a lot of people being interviewed, and I was actually looking for that, because this for me is one of the most important things about being a QA. It's not about the amount of programming languages that the person knows or tools that they know how to use. It's really about being able to, look at something from different angles and try to just try different things and be creative and curious and try and learn. So it's also not that easy, not that straightforward, right? It is that straightforward when we are trying the happy path, but we do way more than that, right?
Right, and we have to try to help. I know more and more people are on teams where they're the solo tester, or maybe they're just a couple testers for a whole lot of programmers. And so we have to help other people learn those skills as well, right? And so, Janet and I try to encourage people to get good facilitation skills.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas I brought to my team from my previous team at OutSystems was a more hands-on way to do meetings like retrospectives. And so I got this idea from Louise Perold, who was my teammate there, to use Google Slides. It's a very low-tech way to do this. Don't put it in presentation mode, just keep it in edit mode and use the Google Shapes to make virtual sticky notes. And then everybody can access the doc at the same time, and you can write sticky notes for stop, start, continue in your retrospective or happy, sad puzzler or whatever it is, or just brainstorming ideas. Like, we have this problem, who's got ideas? And I asked my new team, if they wanted to try that, because they were using Confluence documents, which there's apparently a way that you can have everybody collaborate real time on this, but we don't know how to do it.
It's not that agile.
So I said, Jack, let's try it this way. And wow, everybody really, really loved that idea. And so that's just, being able to facilitate a meeting and knowing some good tools for that. That's a great thing we can bring to our team. Having a workshop for my team, if they want to learn how to use some technique like example mapping or mind mapping. I'm surprised how many people still don't know how to do mind mapping. So,
that's trickier than might seem. I have to be honest.
Yeah. So So we need to be kind of consultants and coaches and be able to say, hey, this problem that we've identified, I was in a webinar and I heard this idea. What if we tried it? And, facilitating people learning about it.
Yeah.
That's a good skill tip that
I can add also I can also add the retrotool.io as a suggestion to the tooling, because you can create columns and retros where everybody even can vote. That's nice one.
Yeah, there's like fun retro. There are a few of those, I think. Yeah, that's a good idea too.
But I do like using that one as well. And I do remember also, just to wrap it up, in one of your books, you also mentioned that one of the most valuable skills is also the courage, because most of the times we link to people, right? People that do not communicate the same language, and we are kind of in the middle. I had once a girl in my team in my previous company at Natasha. She was a junior QA. It was her first experience, and she said one thing that I will never ever forget is like, QAs are ducks, because you have like birds that can fly, you can then ones that can walk and cannot fly, and QAs know a little bit of everything. So that's true.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's why we are just creating bonds, right? Among different roles, and I think that's also a very valuable skill for a QA.
Oh, I really love that. It makes me think of Elizabeth Hendrickson, who's always been one of my icons in terms of learning.
I love that as well, and I keep repeating it because it really matches what I think about QAs. It's like they know a little bit of everything. They fly a little bit, they walk a little bit.
Well, one of Elizabeth's taglines is "There's always a duck," and she even has a book by that name, an ebook by that name. And that's not why she says that, but it's like that's a brilliant tie-in. It's like there's always a duck, and it's us. We're the ducks.
Exactly. Exactly. We're the ducks. And Lisa, I also noticed one in your working experiences that you had, some work experience at Mabel. And I was wondering, what do you think about AI at testing?
Well, unfortunately, people latch onto that big AI idea, because everybody's looking for the magic silver bullet that'll solve all their quality problems. And
at least end with flaky tests forever.
Exactly. I think AI is a good addition. I think it really helps us. I think we're getting to a new generation of automated test tools because of things like machine learning. Because we can take advantage of it to notice patterns. Like, what the Mabel tool will notice if the page load performance suddenly deteriorates and flag that for you. Or it will notice if something that's usually static on a page has changed, and it'll let you know. Mm-hmm. So those are really wonderful things, because nothing's more soul crushing than to try to look through something you're about to release and make sure nothing visually changed that you didn't want to change. Even using diffing tools, that's really so it's a great addition to our toolbox. But I think I love products like Mabel, but even though it makes it a lot easier to automate tests, and people without a coding background can get started with it, you still have to understand test automation patterns and principles, code design patterns and principles, because no matter what tool you're using, you can still design a test very poorly.
That's true.
So, for example, one of my favorite test patterns, it's from Marcus Gertner, and it's one clear purpose. So each test should only test one thing, so that when that test fails, you know exactly what happened. You know exactly what's wrong, because it's only testing one thing. But a newbie mistake that people with less experience make with these more modern low-code tools, or code, they say codeless, none of them are really codeless, is they'll make a test that's 200 steps long and tests 50 different things. And then when it fails, they've got to pick through. Well, they see where it failed, but it might have failed for something that happened 20 steps ago. Right?
Okay.
And then now when we have to try to reproduce it, we've got all those steps we have to go through. And that test can be hard to maintain. You're going to be updating it all the time because it goes through so many pages, for example. So you have to be really smart. You talked a lot about end-to-end testing. You have to be really smart about it and try to find ways to make your tests maintainable. And that's true no matter what tools you're using. So the patterns and practices behind it are important no matter what you're using. But yeah, things like machine language, we can really take advantage of to remove a lot of our cognitive load so that we can use our human skills more on things that we really need our brains for.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nice to have on top of it. So we came a long way from, almost no QAs in the teams or really no QAs in the teams to the beginning of QA times. Then we moved to the Agile, when we started to have Agile testers, programmers, QAs with programming skills, QA engineers, now AI. What's next from your point of view? What do you think is the future of testing?
Well, I certainly see a trend that that more teams have a lower ratio of testers to developers, and hopefully they're taking a whole team approach to testing. Some of them aren't, but hopefully they are. And so I think it just changes. It makes a bit of change. Like I say, it makes us more value some coaching skills, consulting skills, teaching skills to help everybody on our team learn the skills that they need so they can all be testers, and to advocate for quality, to be an influencer. I've learned from people like Linda Rising that as humans, logic and facts do not really change our minds. So how can we influence a team to do, like I say, I'm trying to plant some seeds with my team to start thinking about accessibility. Of course, that's more of a product decision, but we can be influencers. We can look for somebody else who can be our ally that maybe thinks the same way we do and brainstorm. How can we get more people on our side? And so that's an important skill that we need. You mentioned being a quality advocate without being a test automator or somebody who's a coder. And I think that's a really important role. I was just chatting with somebody yesterday on Slack, who in another testing workspace, that's what she wants to do. She's just starting out in her career and she sees herself as more of a quality advocate. How can she create that role for herself in her company? And I think there's a lot of scope there for us to kind of design our own jobs and see where we can add value. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, we just see a lot of new roles just bursting. Right, quality owner, quality advocate, quality engineer, software engineer. And you see, you see a lot of different roles nowadays.
And I'm a fan of Alan Page and Brent Jensen's modern testing principles. And they're very much on the side of, we need the basic Agile testing skills and we need the coaching skills, data science skills, right? And as I mentioned earlier, we have to learn from production. What are our customers doing? What's important to them?
Yeah.
Where's the value? Where are they struggling? So that's an important skill that we need. But at the same time, I think, Janet and I in our first book together, we had the Agile principles for an Agile tester. And those are still a really, they haven't aged. They're still a really good basis, providing feedback and delivering value and helping with enabling face-to-face communication. I think most testers I know have a superpower of knowing who are the right people to get together and get them talking.
Exactly.
Right? And, having courage, like you say, doing the simplest thing that could possibly work, which is sometimes hard to do. Really focusing on continuous improvement, embracing change, helping the team to be autonomous and self-organized, and it's all about having the right people and helping them do their best job. And as testers, that we can help the team try to achieve that.
That's true. Thank you. And I do agree with you that But we'll see. I also saw a talk from Angie Jones
Oh yeah.
a couple of months ago, and she was showing the Jetsons, I think,
Oh yeah, yeah,
series
yeah.
about
I
the
love that.
future,
I
and
saw
she
that
said
talk
like,
too.
we
Yeah,
were expecting to have this by 2020, so probably this should be our
yeah,
future soon. So we'll
yeah.
see
Where are my flying
whether
cars?
exactly maybe we will be testing flying cars sometime soon. We'll see. And what about your plans for the near future? Any talks, conferences, participations, where we can listen more from you?
You know, I really, I did so many talks last year because it seems so easy to do. Oh, it's online. I don't have to travel, but it turns out to take up a lot of time still to prepare
Yeah,
talks and remote workshops, especially. Take a lot of
exactly.
preparation, and I feel like I have so much to learn from my new job. I really have to focus.
Okay.
So I'm sure I do have things coming up. I know Janet and Johanna Rothman and I are going to do a webinar. I think it's May 27th, talking about the
Okay.
test automation pyramid and how that's changed over the years. That'll be really fun.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, I
So,
know. I'm sure I
okay,
have
can we
other things. I just can't
still?
think.
Okay, but is it possible still to sign up for this event, or it was
It hasn't even
just?
been posted yet, so it'll be advertised. I
Oh,
don't even have
okay.
a link for it yet. It's
We
just
need,
not being
yeah,
organized.
we need to pay
Yeah,
attention then, to
definitely
not to
spread the word.
miss it.
And of course, I'm very hopeful that Agile Testing Days in Germany will happen in November, and that I
Yeah.
can go to that. We don't know. I mean, I'm all vaccinated,
That's nice.
hooray! But there's just so
Oh,
much uncertainty still with the pandemic. But I'm hoping we can get back to some in-person conferences, and you know, I've submitted for that, and Janet and I are going to do tutorials. So, and I'm hoping to do a couple workshops with various people, and so I'm hoping that that happens. But yeah, I'm kind of, you know, I mean, as you know, I had to do this on a Saturday because it's very difficult with my new schedule to do things during the week. And so I'm kind of taking a bit of a break. I'm still trying to attend meetups and learn stuff, but
yeah.
this was nice
But
because I didn't have
I
to
do.
prepare. But, you know, preparing a talk is a lot of work. So,
Exactly. The interviewing part, it's easier because, yeah, I just ask questions, and I really, the focus here is to learn more about inspiring people like you are. So,
oh. But I
um,
mean, I hope that people realize it's like I have the same struggles as probably everybody watching this has. It's like,
you are still a
you know,
human, right?
it's like, well, yeah, okay, well, you know, Janet and I wrote books, mostly her ideas. She's the idea person. But you know, I have the same need for courage. I have the same fear. It's like, oh, am I going to be able to be good enough to take the role of driver when I'm in the ensemble? And
Yeah.
am I going to be good enough at helping the team come up with an automation strategy? And you know, I have the same fears, and I'm a shy person. I think it's really important to build relationships, and so that takes me some courage to ask somebody in another team, for example, oh,
I
I'd like to
couldn't
get to know what you
imagine.
do. Can we have a 30-minute one-on-one, or can we have a 15-minute virtual coffee? And those have, you know, it's so valuable, right? We need people, and it's been really valuable at my current team. People were so willing to meet with me, and so I met with a couple people on the platform engineering team.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I was asked to test was a migration to a new deployment tool for the deployment pipeline. And he had mentioned it when we were talking. He's like, yes, we've got this new project. We're going to try to migrate to this tool. And then the product my team works on, that was the next one they're going to migrate. And I'm like, oh, I already know him. I already have another meeting scheduled with him. And he helped me put together a testing strategy for it. You know, if I hadn't reached out to him, I wouldn't have known what to do. I wouldn't even have
Yeah.
known he was working on that. And so it just, those kind of things afford you some serendipity. It's like, oh yeah, I was talking to this other person. I heard about that. So
Great. Thank you for your time, Lisa. I think that yeah, we want still more time from your Saturday morning, right? It's still morning back there in
it is,
Vermont.
and it's a beautiful day. So I'm gonna have time
Oh.
to drive the donkeys and have a lot of fun.
Awesome. We had some
And
rain here in Lisbon.
oh, that's too bad. And I'm still taking Portuguese lessons. You
That's
know,
amazing.
one of these
That's
days, my
great.
husband and I are going to get to Portugal and use the Portuguese. We've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
trying to
as
do it
much
for a
as it's
year.
so awesome, yeah, as much as it's awesome to have, this all workshops, meetups, just by at the reach of a click button. um, I do think that we all miss, just having some face-to-face time. So
Yeah.
uh, I can say, in the name of all Portuguese QAs, we are eager to see you here in Portugal.
Yay.
Please visit us, and yeah, that would be a very nice experience, and we can just do something, uh, uh, a meetup face-to-face, like in
For
the
sure. That would be so
old
fun.
school way.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds great.
Great. Great. Thank you. And thank you also to everybody that was with us today and that will watch us afterwards. Stay tuned for more quality talks, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments. Bye bye, and have a nice weekend.
Bye. Have a great week.